Now I just use it for
Making
sure that it's working, because sometimes it you lose. Yeah, it has happened once and it was like
so
tragedy.
many interviews like that, it's not even funny.
Yeah, it is not. It is terrible. And even video footage, I have an interview where like half of it is just a picture, but at least as long as the audio is
Audio
clear.
is there,
Yeah. Good. Let me do the introduction and
Sure,
we'll start.
sounds good. Yeah.
I started my career as an Android developer due to my love for technology, specifically the Android platform. I moved on from tech pretty quickly, but my fascination for new technology still remains. Every so often, I visit Udacity.com to check out what's new in tech to learn out there, and what do these technologies have to offer to one's career. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about that, opportunities in entrepreneurship and the problems up for solving through emerging technology, with Raghu Mohan. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Raghu has had an absolutely interesting career across roles in tech journalism, media, marketing, community building, with the likes of YourStory.com, HackerEarth, Udacity.com on his resume. His startup IBC Media has recently hosted Genesis DevCon, which is the biggest blockchain developer conference from India. They are currently working with Eternity Ventures to bring Global Starfleet program to India, which is an accelerator that invests in blockchain startups. So I thought it would also be useful to explore some other extracurriculars that software engineers can indulge in for career development. This, by the way, is also kind of a milestone on this podcast, as it was a first inbound interest to be featured on the show. So I'll thank Raghu for that and congratulate myself as I begin this episode. So Raghu, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I thought that we've been following your work ever since Genesis DevCon, and the kind of coverage that you've done at other events and the quality of conversations that you've had. I was like, we've got to do this. We have to be on your podcast at least once.
Awesome, I really appreciate it. Yeah. Because the thing is, like, I've had some like really interesting conversations on the podcast, but I also want to be able to contribute back. See, in like globally, like a lot of these podcasts and all, you see that people have a book launch or something like that coming up, and that is when they get on the podcast, and the guests also have to benefit something from the podcast. Yeah. So like if I have something to like contribute back, like
I mean, I think, sure, man, like this is
happy about it.
Yeah, I mean it's clearly like, you know, you're making waves, and it's the pleasure's all ours.
Awesome. Here. I just want to like tell you a little bit about how I know you, like because I've been following your work from like a little while, because because you were deeply into Android, right? Kind of
back in the day. I had the chance to be a part of this community called the Bangalore Android User Group, and a lot of what I learned as for community building and and technology in general came from there. It was the first time that I saw like a really people on a weekend, right? Like just kind of coming together and learning something about a new technology. That was unheard of for me at the time. It was 2011, and shout out to the OGs who actually kind of pulled that off. Amrit Sanjeev, he's with Google right now. One of the coolest guys that I know. Ravi Vyas, he's one of the mentors for this accelerator that I'm running right now. So he was one of them. There was a guy called Soham Mondal. There was a guy called Pranay Iran. All of these guys, they were like champions, and they were doing it because they just love to learn, and that's how it started for me. So my association with Android was not because I was super interested in Android as a tech. I mean, it was really cool, and back then, you know, we did a lot of work in that space as well. But it was more from that phenomena of just people coming together and like learning for the sake of learning. That was super exciting for me to see.
Absolutely, because I was a student back then. I was in final year of engineering when I like came to Bangalore Android User Group, and I was mind blown. I found the group through one of these forums online when I was looking into learning about Android, and when I actually found that there are actual meetups out here where they like people selflessly like give out knowledge, build out this community, and all this activity going on. It's like absolutely awesome. And I think you were also kind of around the same like stage in your career, just starting out or something.
That was right. Yeah. I think I just finished about a year doing a hardcore sales job.
Okay.
And I was moving into marketing at the time, and that's when I saw this happen.
So you were like really impressed with.
Oh yeah, man! Like that was because it was very close to my heart as well, right? Like it was back in college. We used to have these side projects, and we had this we had this collaborative learning thing called Neurang back in the day, and Neurang in German stands for innovation or something like that. Okay, I don't remember, but people from all other departments of college used to come together and share what they learned. Okay, and so how that applied to other departments. So that's something that we did for like a couple of years, and it was a very popular club in our college. Okay, and to come out and see that in Bangalore, that was like super exciting for me.
And also, like, what I find interesting is that, like, see, these meetups provide like such a, why I even bring it up is because these meetups provide such a it's quite a big deal in terms of the opportunity, the fact that you can network with industry leaders, you can learn about common problems out there, and you've been like very entrenched in the scene, right? You've been running meetups and now even running conferences and all that. Like, but I feel, I'm not very familiar, but you correct me if I'm wrong, like not many software engineers and people generally are taking advantage of these, like,
that's right. I just think that it talks to a different kind of professional, right? I still remember there was a guy called Pradeep Pati, and I don't mind using his name, okay, because this is a really inspiring story for me. We were dabbling in creating these training programs for Android, and as a business guy, you find the incentive that is there for somebody else to share their knowledge. So I said, hey, we are looking for somebody who can teach this. I can assemble a student group of XYZ, and we'll make sure that there's a payout at the end of this. So he looked me dead straight in the eye, okay, and said, the only reason I do this is because of my zeal to learn. And these were his exact words, okay. And that really like took me aback, and I was like, wow, such people exist. And the truth is that very few of them exist, and the meetup format as such talks directly to them. I think that all software developers or professionals kind of end up at that place where they are, learning kind of comes at the top, and they're hungry to know more, and they like doing it for doing sake. And there's no external factors kind of associated with it. So to answer your question, yeah, you're right. Most software developers don't take advantage of this, but that's also because it talks directly to a kind of person who just wants to learn, who just wants to share with the community, and those people in any part of the world are very, very few. So that, I think that's where the disconnect is.
But in Bangalore, it's got a lot of activity like this, right? In terms of meetups in every field, right?
That's true.
It's quite active, and it's it's really awesome.
I think that's the best part about Bangalore. I think it attracts the best people, right? So when you see a full meetup here, it's just that those kind of self-actualized people, there are just a lot more of them in Bangalore than any other place that I've seen in India. In India.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, like, we'll come back to a little more of this as we go through your jobs in the past and all that, because you've had like a really interesting career as far as I'm concerned. Because see, I'm interested in technology, okay? And when I was looking at technology, like early in my career, I thought it was programming. I was very into apps, mobile apps, and I thought like the way to get in there is to learn development. And like I got lost a little bit in between, because as I was learning more about it, I didn't see my strength. I knew that I would not be like an awesome programmer. Like my manager was so good. Obviously, I cannot compare myself to manager, but you understand like how you're able to work through these things. But then when I see you, like you were also in technology, but you were expressing yourself in a completely different way, in a creative way, like at YourStory, and you were writing, like so I want to find out like how that happened, and how has that contributed to your career and all
That's
that.
the funniest story ever, I'll tell you. So that Android programming thing that I was just talking to you about, it never really took off. Okay. And at that time, and this was something that we were trying out on our own. It's like it's a, time to look for other forms of sustenance. And I think from the time I graduated I have an engineering background, but I've never done an engineering job in my life till date. I think it taught me a little bit of how to understand technology, but that's about it. Okay. And I was very clear about the fact that I will do the things that I like to do and I'm good at. Okay. And that's where sales kind of came into one thing. Marketing is something that I was truly interested in, and I love to write. Right. And one of my big regrets in life is that over time the amount that I write has dramatically reduced. Okay. But I love writing. Okay. And
When you say you loved writing in general, like before
I think I like telling stories.
Okay.
Yeah, I like telling stories, and I've dabbled around and things like that. My sister actually has taken it up to a next level. Like she's authored, and she has a book that people can buy as well. Shameless plug, but no.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think like I was naturally inclined to writing, and that's literally what I wrote to Shraddha Sharma on Facebook. So I sent her a long ass Facebook message. I can show it to you later. It's still there somewhere. And I literally said, "Hey, Shraddha, I've been following your story for a while. I love the kind of stories that you write. I understand entrepreneurship to an extent because I've started up myself and failed tremendously.
Okay.
And I love to write. And I really think that I can be, someone who adds value to your story."
Okay.
And I think in the next 10 minutes or so, she responded saying, "Hey, this is good. Why don't you come down to the office?" And I guess that was back in the day when, Shraddha Sharma was a little more accessible than what she is now.
She's a little bit of a legend right now.
Yeah. So she said, "Come over." And I literally went there, and they had just hired this CTO from Google at the time, Aditya Kulkarni. And the two of them interviewed me. It's like, "Okay, what do you like to write about? What do you do?" And I thought it was going to be like a tech journalism type job. And that's when I was truly introduced to like startups, right? But essentially it was as simple as this. "Okay, what can you do? Do you like to write? Do you understand this space? Cool. Why don't you start next Wednesday? And we'll see how you work out for a week, and then we'll take it from there." So I joined next Wednesday. It worked out. The week worked out quite well, and I think those 1.5 years that I spent there were like the best time of my life. Like I had a whale of a time doing what I did at YourStory.
That is awesome. But man, what is also very cool is that this happened through a Facebook message.
Yeah,
Wow.
dude. Like I think I've only done one formal interview in my life, that was at Udacity, but everything else has been through, "Hey, I really like what you're working on, and I think I can add value to it." And I honestly think that that's the only way you should get jobs. You shouldn't do these, and then that, again, maybe we are digressing here, but I really want to make this
feel
point.
free, yeah.
Know what you're good at, know what you like to do, and don't expect the job to come to you. You see what you can add to the job, and I think that's kind of served me quite well.
Okay, know what you're good at. So with your story and writing, you recognize that, and you went on for. So you made a very good choice.
Yeah, I think I knew that, look, I can do this. I'm competent at this. And then the second thing is obviously the whole do what you like to do. Because this is your career is what you do the most in your life, I feel. It's more than the time that you spend with your loved ones. It's more than the time that you invest in your hobbies. More time than what you studied. So it better be something that you like. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable.
See, like very recently, I did an interview with Abhi and Neo. I don't know if these are like 2 stars.
Doing the 100 reasons.
Yeah. They're doing such amazing work. But they also told the same thing. Like he told, like, choose your job wisely in terms of being happy. A tip to being happy. And that is this is a new information for me. Because the thing is, when people talk about doing something that you love, we think about following your passion in terms of entrepreneurship. I feel like what you're saying right now, and this is very actionable in terms of the next job you take as well.
It's true.
And I think we have, like, early on, at least in terms of the choices you have, try to focus towards the direction that you might end up enjoying. I think that is a little easier decision to make in terms of long-term satisfaction.
Take it a step, break it down more than that also, right? Like, see the things that you like to do. At the end of the day, a job kind of breaks down to maybe 10 or 15 tasks, which you'll have to repeat over and over again. Now, if you don't like that, then you're going to be, like, say, I'm an introvert. I generally don't like starting conversations with people. Good idea to not probably do a sales job, right? But and you may not know that, that there is an option for people who are inclined to that kind of work in sales or customer support or things like that. But try to break down job roles into the tasks that it entails and see if you are inclined to doing it and you're competent enough to do it.
Okay.
So I think that helps. I feel most people I think just see, okay, that uncle is.
Do you notice people doing like mistakes in this, like
early on, for sure? And I think a part of professional development is understanding this approach.
Yeah.
And but yeah, as soon as when you're green outside of college, the only thing that you want to know is what offer will I get in my hand.
And also the problem is, once you take the wrong choice, like generally it's the tendency is to just follow that path. Like that is also kind of
Yeah, that's only mostly because people don't like change, and
Yeah.
change is unsettling. But yeah,
Yeah, so
it's a bit of
the kind of
you have to make
point
a
I'm
call.
trying to also like get at is the choice, like the importance of a choice based on like where your strengths are and what you like to do. Like, yeah.
There are no absolute choices at the end of the day. There are people who reinvent themselves all the time. It just gets harder.
Yeah.
It's one more hard thing to do. So
Right,
nothing
right,
is lost if you make a bad choice, but you'll have to spend time
Right,
kind of reinventing.
and also it is a fact that whatever you do is going to contribute back to you. Like, end
For
of the
sure.
day. Like,
For sure.
that
It's
is
living example right here.
especially early on, like when you can hustle around, like even if you're not good at sales and still you can learn these things, put yourself out of the comfort zone and all that. Yeah,
It will
For
help you,
yeah,
for sure, yeah.
Now, like in your story, see, we're gonna come to like definitely we'll come to like emerging tech and everything. Now we
for sure,
started,
for sure,
but with your story, like tell me more about like what was it like working there now, and like right now they are like a tech crunch from India, right? But you were there like very early on when they started.
I think when I joined, there was only 2 other writers.
Okay.
At the time. So there was.
What is that like? And also like it's a very hot like blog. Like you guys talk to all the startups in town, and like it's very exciting as far as people like from the outside. What's your view on that?
Well,
I mean, what is that like?
So look, it's a sign of commitment, right? Shraddha could have done anything else, but she really liked doing what she did. And just to give you guys perspective, she was an assistant vice president at CNBC before assistant or associate vice president at CNBC before she started YourStory. So her career was sorted. Okay, but for her to do what she did and trudge it out for over 10 years, it just shows commitment to what she did. Interviews back then weren't as easy as what it looks like right now. You had to look for the startups, you had to take time for them. But over time, when they found out that this is the intentions behind running YourStory were still they're very good. At the end of the day, we wanted to talk about startups. We wanted to give them a platform, and we wanted to educate the startup community. And I think those core values haven't changed till now, and that's why it is as big as it is right now. Work-wise, I think it was super exciting. I put on 20 kgs at YourStory, and I've been losing it ever since. But that's only because it was, we were all really having a great time doing it. I think for the first 5 or 6 months since I joined, it was only me. There's a guy called Jubin Mehta. He's also a guy you should get on your podcast, by the way.
Okay.
He's an interesting story. So me, Jubin Mehta, there was a guy called Aditya Bhushan Dwivedi, and there was a girl called Brinda who kind of left as well. I think that's all there were. That was the writing staff. And people came in and went, and at any given time, there were days where either Jubin or me would be the only writers putting out stories on YourStory at that time. And a blog that big with just
So what, like, tell me about the frequency of writing and all that in a week. How much would you?
We tried a bunch of things. I know today that there are thousands of stories that are being written on a monthly basis, but I've seen days when you do 1 story a day to 5 stories a day.
Wow.
And look, those stories were there. Okay, there are enough stories to say, but like per writer, we've seen like 1 to 5 per day. And as a blog, we were putting out anywhere between 10 to 25 stories a day.
Isn't that like super challenging? Like,
it was hard, yeah.
But even when I try to come up with any form of writing,
no, we didn't have to come up with it. The entrepreneurs were there, the interviews were there, the startups were there. It's just about talking to them.
Okay.
And but yeah, even that wasn't easy. It was
even the bookings and all you would do between yourselves, or there were people.
I think in the beginning it was ourselves.
Okay.
And I remember we used to tag team a lot with saying, okay, you cover this part, these kind of companies, I'll cover this sector, and we had a little bit of structure there. But after a point, it started becoming quite inbound, and YourStory gave me a lot of doors opened because of my time there.
Okay.
So yeah, I had it was basically just we tried we worked very, very hard. And I think if anything, YourStory taught me how to really work hard.
Okay.
And I think if you put in the time, the results will come. And that's basically YourStory as a company as a whole.
Yeah. Now, before we get to your other two roles in Hacker Earth and Udacity, let's talk about what you're doing right now, the company that you're building and what you're doing and all that. Tell me about IBC Media and what's your role there and why you founded it and all that.
Yeah, honestly, IBC Media started off as an accident. We really didn't have that in mind when we started. So this is super interesting, right? So Udacity was my last job. I quit and took a month off, and I got married. And at the time, I really wanted to know what I should do next with my life. Go back to another job or do another early stage stint and see what happens, right? Like so.
This was in 2016,
2017, early 2017.
Okay.
So I picked up a few consulting jobs, and that just kind of picked up. And blockchain happened to be one of the industries that we were serving. We were also serving clean tech at the time through another partner of ours, and there were many small consulting gigs that we were doing, and that was quite. I mean, it was very good. Like in terms of revenue, in terms of time that I had to myself, and the kind of work that I was doing, it was great fun. One of the companies that we were servicing wanted to do a very large event, and that was the International Blockchain Congress, IBC. Right, and because of my...
So we were servicing as in through your consulting
Through
work?
my consulting.
Okay.
So in fact...
So this was during your break, like after Udacity you were...
Yeah, and then, I mean, I ended up working a lot harder than what I was at a full-time job, but it was after that time.
Okay.
Mid 2017. Mid 2017 is when the first blockchain thing happened, and then immediately another blockchain project came, and another blockchain project came, and suddenly we happened to become like one of these go-to guys every time you want something from India or anything blockchain in specific. We were quite early in that game, so that grew tremendously, and suddenly this guy who wanted to do this really big event kind of came to us and said, you've had some experience doing events. So I'd done events at YourStory. I'd done events at Hacker Earth.
Okay.
And I had a brief stint with a company called HasGeek, which I did a little, and I'd seen some of their events as well. So you have some knowledge of the events, can help us out here. So went in there. It was an interesting experience. Let me just put it that way. Okay. And 1.5 months work of just dig down and work your backsides off. We pulled off, I think at the time, Asia's biggest blockchain event. About 5,000 people came to the event that happened in Hyderabad and Goa. And
this is before you founded.
So at that time is when the founder of that company who did that event came up to me and said, "Hey, I want to do something in between emerging tech and media. Okay. And if you're willing to do something there, I'd be happy to invest in what you're doing." So that was a moment where we looked back saying, okay, look, what have we been doing so far? We've been working with startups, we've been working with developers, and we love emerging tech as a thing. So all of this kind of aligned at that place, and we set a vision for the company, and that has kind of evolved to where we are right now. So I think innovation management is basically where we are at. We are focused on technologies rather than sectors, and we are basically in the business of connecting innovators to big problems.
Okay.
And that as a vision statement has several smaller things. So we do everything from running partner programs to running accelerators to doing just plain deal flow and these large events that we do. So we're driven by that one vision. Now, obviously, we're being a little more structured about what kind of products to offer to whom, but yeah, that's how it happened.
Okay.
So it was just a series of these freelance things that just kept growing until one person said, "Think bigger, and there is a big opportunity here, and if you want to do something there, I will invest in you."
Okay.
Because he'd seen us work very closely with them, for over a year up until that point. So we grabbed that opportunity, and here's where we are.
But did you have entrepreneurship in mind, like before you got into it? Were you like looking to venture out on your own, or was it because because the opportunity came to you?
I think it is more because the opportunity came to me. There's a very interesting talk that I gave at Bar Camp back in 2013 when I was with YourStory. And this talk was, why do people start up? Okay, and there were 4 reasons at the time, and very clearly I remember saying at the end of the somebody asked me, why haven't you started up yet? I was like, look, I've seen Shraddha up close, okay, and the emotional toll that entrepreneurship takes on you is something that I didn't want to put myself into willingly, okay, until like there is like when the opportunity kind of came up, we were like, look, man, if we don't do this, then it's not going to be right. But I wasn't going to how do you say this? I wasn't going to like start up for the sake of starting up. If the opportunity arises, there's a market for it. We have displayed some strength in that place. Is when I thought entrepreneurship is one way to do it. So yeah, man, it literally happened by accident. I never personally intended on being an entrepreneur. But I've always loved working with startups, and I love seeing the entrepreneurial spirit in action.
Okay.
Right. There are so many stories that I have seen in my time at YourStory with the people that I've worked. And there is that it factor, as they say, right? And I never get tired of it. And if what I do combines all of these things and gives me the chance to interact with entrepreneurs on a daily basis, why not?
Yeah. Now, your early days, like just getting into the transition, like was it natural? Like I'm thinking you were kind of in a leadership position where you're already like pulling things off on your own in terms of responsibility, and also like how was your previous experience like contributing to this transition?
So we're basically like employee to leadership, right? Like I think my early stage startup experience has helped the most here. Because the accountability is with you. If you fail, the entire team fails, and that pressure is obviously is something that I've seen before. I think. I just think that I've had the luck of working with companies that scaled really fast and were impactful for India as such. And that experience worked with me. And I also have the benefit of knowing a lot of founders myself. And I always have a good set of people that I can reach out to if I need to know how I cope with these things. So I just think that I didn't intentionally train for it, but a lot of the things that applied as an early founding member applies as a founder as well. There are added responsibilities that I have learned over time, but more or less being a part of an early small team or leading a company yourself aren't very different from each other.
Okay, awesome. So being part of the startup ecosystem was very helpful in
being part of an early stage startup. You can be a part of the startup ecosystem and never be, never have the experiences that I've had. But it's not for everyone, but if it's a life-changing experience. So you should work at a growth stage startup in one way or the other.
Yeah. We were discussing earlier, right, how you think about entrepreneurship in terms of like that there needs to be more entrepreneurs for sustenance of like jobs and things like that. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, we have India as a country has a demographic bulge. There are more young people in India than ever, and no matter what kind of jobs that you bring in, what kind of companies that come in, you're not going to have enough jobs for all of them. We are also living in an era of automation. A lot of the things that required people and man hours, people hours to do are things that computers do far better than us. So at a time like this, I think that adopting the gig economy approach at a large scale and or entrepreneurship is one thing that can ease off pressure in this demand for jobs that is there in the country. At the end of the day, it's also like somebody wrote this on Twitter recently. I can't remember who, but they say that entrepreneurship is actually a pursuit in self-development disguised as a business endeavor. And it's for us to become better people or higher quality people. I think that some amount of entrepreneurship in our life whichever way you do it is something that will do good for us as a country as well. So yeah, I see that there is a tremendous deficit in jobs, that in formal jobs that we can bring in, and entrepreneurship and adopting the gig economy approach would definitely ease that pressure. And secondly, it will make us better people. Entrepreneurship or working for yourself increases self-accountability in India, and the average Indian isn't the most accountable person out there. This is something that demands you to be self-accountable, and it just makes us a better people at the end of the day.
Also, like, considering the fact that jobs are very insecure nowadays, like, I mean, it's also safer to kind of have your something to come back to, build yourself in creative ways, entrepreneurs as an entrepreneur, or like side projects and all that. Like,
yeah, you're right. The whole job security thing is now gone, right? Like, even maybe the government job thing is still there. That a lot of that a lot of people still thinking like, I'm set for life. But I think more people should now start thinking about, okay, what are my skill sets? Are they relevant to this space, and can I add value there? And as long as you solve that problem, there will always be opportunities for you. I think economically, we are in the best times of the world at the moment, right? Like, there's just so much abundance currently right now, and I think if you focus on your skills, the opportunities are always there for you to take.
Awesome. And totally encourage everyone to think about that, even if they're not taking like steps right away, at least think about it a little further down the road to start building about that, because it takes time. Now, coming back to IVC, we got sidetracked a little bit. Tell me about what are the things that you're doing specifically. Now, you said accelerators. We know that you had conferences. You also hold hackathons. Like, what is IBC doing for the developer community, and also like what are the opportunities for developers to like take advantage of through your services and all that?
Sure. I think we
developers or anybody like your service.
So developers and entrepreneurs is basically the supply end of things. We serve the enterprise at the end of the day, right? Like, so AE Ventures is one of our clients who's running a startup accelerator in India, and our job is to kind of take that opportunity of funding and market access to entrepreneurs that AE Ventures wants to look at, and there are several of them in India. So currently, at a small level, what we're doing is running this really awesome accelerator. It's like the 4th edition of it, and the first time in India. And that's one technology accelerator that we are running for startups that specifically leverage blockchain. Then we are also doing an emerging tech accelerator for the government of Telangana. There they have a blockchain district as such, which basically gives you support and access to clients and business for mainly services and enterprise facing companies. So that's an accelerator that we are running right now. There is a MSME Enterprise Connect program that we're running for Microsoft, and that is it's called the Century program, and that's something that we're doing right now. Apart from that, we have a couple of smaller clients that we help with respect to market access. So this is an overseas company that is looking to build partners in India, and that's looking to build a community in India, and we help them with that.
Okay.
So this is us for now. Of course, the events obviously serve as a platform where all these ecosystem players that we are talking to. So because of AE Ventures, we are talking to, I think I have personally spoken to about 450 startups myself, and in vetting them, if they would be good for this program. So we have a huge set of startups that we're talking to. We have a huge set of developers that we speak with. And then the corporates are obviously there. And the events serve as a good place for all of them to kind of come and have meaningful dialogue. So that's basically it. And our next one is in August. We're planning for it soon. You'll see an announcement for it.
Okay.
Hope to see you there. But that's basically what we're doing. If you notice, the common thread here is that there is an innovator with a solution, and there is an enterprise with a problem. And we have programs that meaningfully connect one to the other.
So when I started the introduction, I visited the conference last time, and it was very clear that it was about emerging technology. Yeah. So that's how I started approaching the podcast. But it looks like you actually stumbled onto it based on the problem you had at hand.
And that's how most good startups are, right? So there are 4 reasons why people start up, in my opinion. Okay, and there could be more, but they usually fall under one of these subsets. One is that people just don't like working for others. Okay, and they're fairly delusional. If you don't have a boss, you will have customers that you have to serve. So those kind of startups hardly ever survive or continue to be like that. Those entrepreneurs change. The second guys are very clear about the fact that I'm going to put in this much time and this much effort and this much of my life into this in return for a monetary goal. That's a great strategy to do it. The third is just people who do it for passion. I had the good fortune of interviewing Padman. Okay,
the real
Padman, Arunachalam Muruganandam, fascinating guy. Okay, he had no reason to be doing the things that he was doing, but he just had to do it. Like he's just passionate about solving that problem. Okay, so artists are like this, struggling artists. I know so many musician friends of mine who aren't doing that well in life, but they would not want to live any other way. This is why they do it. And the fourth thing is when a problem takes hold of you. That and I don't know, there's a sense of mysticism to this, but as an entrepreneur that there is a intersection between what I'm good at, what I like, and what the world wants, right? And those are very, very rare companies, and something like that has happened to us, that there is a big demand for this. We like doing what we are doing, we're decent at what we do, and there's a nice model that's emerged from that.
Awesome. Now, can you tell me a little bit about opportunities in emerging tech? What are you seeing in terms of the discussion you're having, and what is it in it for the job seekers or for the people out there, students and all that?
I think emerging tech has caught the imagination of a lot of businesses. And
okay, let's also define emerging tech.
I think anything that's been invented and put into production in the last 15 years, I would say is an emerging tech. Like artificial intelligence as a concept has existed for several years, but its implementation in games and business processes is something that has happened in the last decade. Okay. Same with blockchain, same with Internet of Things, as you may have heard of. So there are a bunch of these edge computing, AR, VR, all of these type of technologies are there. So as a job seeker, I think training yourself in understanding these emerging technologies and being able to have some sort of implementable skill, either as a technologist or as a marketer or as a salesperson, just understanding what this technology is opens up several functional opportunities within that. Currently the demand for people who understand these technologies is very high. I think blockchain engineer is one of the highest paid jobs on several job boards that are there. I think Indeed said that on average their salaries are 40-50% higher than the other jobs, the same jobs in different sectors.
Okay.
And also emerging technologies is what drives a lot of disruption, right? A GPS, a mobile phone, and mobile internet came together to solve something which everybody has struggled with, which is transportation, right? Without even one of these 3 emerging technologies, it would have been very hard to pull off something like an Uber or an Ola. But that really disrupted the way we commute, right? So at the center of most disruptions that we are seeing right now, there is some emerging technology play in there. So that's probably also why businesses want to know more of what they can do with this. So as a professional, if you know how this technology works and you're able to apply your functional trade in it, and your functional trade could be that I'm a marketer, I'm a seller, I'm an operations person, I'm a developer, and you take these functional things, apply it to emerging technologies, and generally there is a higher demand for you than anyone else.
Okay, so it can be an interesting bet to take, whatever, regardless of whether it doesn't have to be you don't have to be a developer for it.
No, for sure. In fact, I honestly think that marketing and storytellers are very much more important I won't say more important, that's very arrogant of me, but I would say that they're just as important as the people building the product as well. because at some point your users or your clients need to understand what it does and not the nitty-gritties that goes into it, and it takes someone who understands all of that to put it in a way that is palatable by. But at the core, understanding what this technology is and how it can be implemented, and some amount of detail in what goes into the running of this technology, its fundamentals is important.
Did it take a lot of learning for you, like, because you also are into this? What was your...
That's a good question, actually. So YourStory changed this for me, and so did Hacker Earth. I had the chance of interacting with people doing different things, and I think I probably subconsciously have a way of learning this, learning the nitty-gritties of how this particular technology works. So I think I learned through exposure.
Okay.
Maybe not the right guy to probably give you advice on how you go about learning these things, but there are methods. Take up a good course or talk to somebody in the field.
I'm also particularly interested in this because I've thought about it in terms of the business side of it, as you said, marketing, like, because even I would imagine there's only more opportunity in this space, and the earlier you build your expertise, the more valuable you become.
For sure. And I think that's worked for me, right? Like, I was at a time when startups are still not mainstream. 2011, startups were still not mainstream. Those success stories had not come. But taking a bet on something that had fundamental value and has reaped great benefits for me. I know how to work at a startup. I know what it is like to scale a startup, and that's made me that much more valuable today than what it would have been if I didn't take that bet.
Awesome. Now, like, in terms of your operations, just getting to the operations of your company a little bit, because you've done something really interesting very recently this year, which is moved to a complete remote working environment. Right? And actually, I wanted to start the podcast with that. It totally different, because that's really interesting. First of all, it's quite bold. That for many people, it would be hard to imagine, like, not being in the office with them to be able to get the deliverables as needed and all that. But you have taken that step, and also now it's been a couple of months, nearly
2 months.
Yeah. How has that been? Why did you do that? And tell me a little bit about your team at IPC Media.
Sure. Actually, I love my team. They are probably one of the best set of people that I've worked with so far, and I've worked with a lot of people in the past. So our freelance practice was entirely remote, and that was perhaps one of the most amount of work that I ever did for anyone else. And this includes a $40 million fundraise. This includes a go-to-market strategy for a multi-billion-dollar renewable energy company. So, this is, I would say that communication tools and the internet and has made it possible to work from home or work remotely. So the technology has obviously always existed. I think what we were fighting against is a mindset change. It's a cultural thing. Okay, we grew up seeing our parents go to work, and that's what we thought we will become when we grow up. And then this is a paradigm shift, with that in mind. And for me, this decision came from a couple of my people who work for my company. One of my colleagues is a new father, and it kills me to know that he spends time commuting to office, working a rock solid hard day, goes back and has literally no time. And I relate to this because my father is in the Air Force, and when I was born, he was in a forward post. I think this was Jodhpur, and he hardly saw me grow up. He used to go to work at 3 a.m. in the morning and come back at 12 in the night. He missed my childhood. Right. Okay. And if that's something that I can, if I was in a position to make that decision for somebody, and that was one thing that personally motivated me. The other is this madman who was traveling from Bannerghatta Road to Hebbal every day. Okay. And that's 4 hours on the road, 4 hours of his life that he could be doing something else with. Yeah. I also strongly believe that who you are outside of work contributes to who you are at work as well. So taking some of those experiences that we had, some of these personal motivations, we said, let's do an experiment. Most of our work doesn't need us being with each other. It needs us to get our work done.
So this has been on your mind
for a very long time.
Okay.
For a very long time. Commuting in Bangalore is terrible. Commuting anywhere is terrible.
Bangalore
okay. So in any urban city has this issue. And I think there's a company called Gumroad, okay, and they are an e-commerce platform for artists and makers. And he is a remote team as well. I think they do. I think they have till date sold over $200 million in product for their users. So, and they are a lean team that works remotely. He said the most interesting thing for me. Most of us in an urban setting model our life around work. When you work remotely, you model your work around your life.
Okay.
And it's much more important for you to have a life here, and work isn't all of it. Okay, and this model helped us to do that. I wanted happier people working for me, and the more people are happy, the better they show up at work. I've got the metrics to prove that over the last 2 months, our average work throughput is much higher.
Really?
We're actually shipping much more than what we ever did. We are doing at least 2 to 3 times more work than what we did at an office. Communication has become far more deliberate. We take people for granted when they're just kind of sitting next to us, and a lot of the time the thing that hurts is effective communication. Now communication is a lot more deliberate, and there is a set agenda when I speak to you. There's a lot less time wasted because of you've cut down your commute, you've cut down your smoke breaks, you've cut down your lunch time and all of that, and people are a lot healthier. There's fewer people calling in sick for the same 2-month period before.
Okay.
In similar this one. So those are obviously some great advantages that make business sense.
Yeah.
Okay. It's no longer about whether work from home is good or not.
Right. This is totally
that's
valuable.
one. And then the second part is, sure, there is a social side of it. Like as an early stage team, all of us get along with each other quite well, and we miss each other, and we compensate for that by meeting once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And just meeting for meeting's sake.
Yeah,
right? So that kind of still has that bonding thing. It works for now. It'll be interesting to see how this scales.
What changes did you have to make in terms of like operations?
We need stronger processes. So we live and die with one project management tool. There's a lot of collaborative discussions that happen on. You need a good communication tool. You need a good project management tool, and you need good project management and communication practices. Okay, so any tool on top of it will work, but you need to list a set of protocols. And at some point when we know that this scales for over 20-25 people, we want to share that with everybody. And I'm sure a lot of people do this right now, but what worked for us, we will probably put out there as well.
In the US, so many companies like Zapier and so many other companies like 100% remote. Even now yourself and even the companies you work with like Eternity also I've spoken to, which are operating like fully remote, which is like awesome. And I think great development for working culture in general.
You know what really bothered me when I floated this around with a lot of people, they said, look, remote culture in India will not work. I said, why? Indians are not sincere, man. And I thought that I took personal offense to that. I think we're full of good people, and if you trust and empower them with good management practices and give them the flexibility of not sacrificing their life for their work to an extent, they give back. And my team at the moment is probably one of the most sincere set of people that are there, and they put in that time and they put in work and effort. And I strongly encourage more people to consider working remotely. A, for the said business reasons that I shared before, and B, also for you have a responsibility to the people who work for you, and don't take that for granted. And this is one thing that is making their lives better. Explore it.
Love it. Hope more people think about that, and also all the best to you on this front. I hope you find more like developments in this.
Sure.
All right. Now let's summarize your previous 2 jobs. Okay, at Hackerat, and basically I want to know how you got into Udacity, because Udacity is awesome. And I think you were the first hire over there. Is that correct?
Yeah, first hire after the country manager. Yeah.
Okay. How you got into that, and just like in general, what was that like? And also your function at Hacker Earth, because Hacker Earth is also like a pretty hot,
Well-known startup. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was fun, right? Like I wanted to move on from YourStory, because at one point, being a technology journalist makes you a little arrogant. Okay. You rub shoulders with a lot of really, really good people. Look, one of my first interviews was the founder of Zoho. Okay. Sridhar Vembu. I was awestruck, right? I've interviewed Kunal Bell from Snapdeal. I've met with the leadership of, literally hung out with the leadership of Flipkart during the hack days and things like that. Naveen Tiwari from InMobi, and like you literally know all of these people on a one-to-one basis, and you're just a storyteller for them. You're covering their news, their industry beats, and things like that. I felt great about myself. I thought I was the top dog there. So one of my last interviews there was this company. I forget the name of the company, but they were failing at the time, and I thought I could tell them what they should be doing with their company. Okay. And I think I gave some decent points, but the guy looked me dead in the eye and said, sure, these are great points, but have you done any of these things? Okay. And that really hit me. Okay. And that's when I realized that talk is cheap. You go and do something yourself.
Nice one.
So, I started then interacting with entrepreneurs with a different agenda to see, okay, look, can I add value there with the skills that I have? That didn't change, obviously, but I wanted to be a part of a growth story somewhere. Okay. And Hacker Earth was interestingly working out of the YourStory office at the time.
Oh, okay.
And one of my colleagues at YourStory had joined Hacker Earth. And Sachin, whom I actually garnered a good friendship with at the time.
The founder of... Okay.
I shamelessly asked him, I actually want to do a role at Hacker Earth. How can I do it? And I learned, I failed at Hacker Earth's expense so many times. Okay, in the point of, in kind of learning the job. I was never a proper traditional marketer at the time. But by the end of it, I had learned whatever I had to. And when I joined, Hacker Earth was 10 or 15,000
marketer
programs.
As in like what are the responsibilities?
So user acquisition on the developer front, and support with some amount of support with sales on the outreach side of things, right? Okay. Like so, those were the two main functions there, and whatever was whatever was a part of that. So
also people management, no,
it did come to that.
Okay.
Again, like I realized very quickly that at that point of my life, I wanted to be an individual contributor, and the nature of my job before that was also that I was more of an individual contributor than a team guy, and that's something that I learned. But I learned through failure. I failed. I know the number of times that I've let Sachin down is not even funny. But he always kind of
that's funny.
The number of times that he's backed me up, he actually invested in me.
Okay.
And I'll eternally be thankful for him for that. So. I learned a lot of things there, and when I left, Hacker Earth was at 750,000 developers, and I think I had some part to play in that.
Okay.
I had a lot of people. Some of the guys that I hired at YourStory now work with at Hacker Earth work with me at the moment. But it was my first experience building something.
Okay.
Being a part of a building. So, and I remember I was a part of the Hacker Earth team when it was just 6 people around a table, and when I left, it was two 6,000 square feet offices. Okay. Wow. So it was a great experience. I felt what growth felt like. Okay. I felt it at YourStory as well, but in a much smaller way. But at Hacker Earth, it was a lot closer to my heart.
Okay.
But at the same time, I thought that I stopped learning there, and I thought that I needed to prove myself. I had learned marketing on the job at Hacker Earth, and I need to now go out and prove myself. And that's where I applied to Udacity. And Udacity was, I think it was 5 rounds of interviews with like everyone who went to Harvard and Stanford and all of these really big guys. But at the end of the day, I think whatever I did at Hacker Earth really was relevant to them, and I think I learned marketing by then. Okay. And I applied through the proper process of there's a job portal, you go and apply for it, fill out a form, and then they call you and go ahead with it. I also knew the country manager personally through his past entrepreneurship experience, and I asked him for a referral as well, and that probably fast tracked my process. But yeah, that's basically how both of those things happen.
Awesome. So it was interesting working at Udacity.
Yes, it taught me process, right? And how do you build systems that scale? Udacity had like tens of thousands of users and tens of thousands of paying customers, and I became a lot more data driven at Udacity than what I was at Hacker Earth.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, your thoughts on education, like how you did engineering, right? So first of all, how has that contributed to your career? Like, and also generally, what are you seeing in terms of trends and what people you're talking to and all that? Like, do people need to do an MBA or higher studies and things like that, whether in emerging tech or in general?
Education is actually something that's super close to my heart, and was one of the reasons why I wanted to join Udacity straight off the bat. For me, when I did my engineering, it was just because scope acha hai. There's a lot of scope in engineering, so do it.
What did you do?
In electronics and communications. No scope there for me. I think, look, man, it boils down to this. I think somewhere midway through my engineering, I realized if you're good at something, you will figure out a way of making a living. So the correlation between a degree and a job isn't as much as it used to be back in the day. But obviously you'll need some skills unless you're a doctor or something like that where you need actual certification. Most jobs, you'll need to pick up skills and show some sort of demonstrable ability for you to be able to do it without making mistakes. Okay, so I learned that somewhere in the middle of my engineering, and honestly, if I had known that before, I'd rather have gone into work full time directly and done that. But the thing that I learned is that I started learning more when I was at a job than and engineering. This is me speaking personally for myself. The degree didn't add a lot of value to my life, but the jobs that I did added tremendous value. And from a learning standpoint specifically, like I now know these foundational skills and how they come together to create, marketing infrastructures, how to run a company, and all of those type of things are things that you learn, that I have learned on the job, and they are the skills that really matter to me. There are academic skills that are needed, especially with respect to, data analysis. There is definitely, you must know how to read a balance sheet. You must know at least some kind of rudimentary finances. And these are specific skills that I have been able to pick up through courses that are there online. I see that becoming more and more important. I think, let's be clear, right? Industry drives education. It's not the other way around. Otherwise, why will you do a bachelor's degree to get a job? You should do a bachelor's degree to do your master's degree, and you should do your master's degree to do a PhD. That is the academic course. That's the academic career, right? And you contribute to the science or the field that you're studying in. Why should you do a BTech to do a job at a bank? I would rather take up the vocational courses that are needed there, so I can go there. So I see. I want more. I don't see this. I honestly have no data showing that these trends are changing or anything. I hope more and more people start being clear about what they want to do with their life. And that comes with only exposure very early on. And if what they want to do with their life is in line with an academic degree, sure, go ahead, do an engineering degree, or do a medical degree, do an arts degree, do something, do an academic degree. If you want to go to a job, do a vocational degree, right? And there needs to be a lot more value to those things. An ITI guy, I still remember there used to be a lot of those lateral entry people who used to come into engineering in the second year. Those guys knew why certain things work the way they do. And that was because they had been trained for that. Right. And I think that there needs to be a lot more emphasis on vocational training, if you ask me, than academic training. We have a very, some of the best institutes in India are here. And I don't think that academic degrees are for everyone. And we should be, kind of clear about that. An MBA is, and from all the people that I've spoken to, people don't value their MBA degrees for what they learned. The knowledge is available all over the world. And in fact, I think you can learn more of an MBA working at a startup or working for an entrepreneur than actually going to even a premier institute, if you ask me. Okay. And this is from a startup context. I've not worked at an MNC, so I don't know what that looks like. Okay. So this is... I think that what people value their MBA most for is the connects that it comes, the peer group that you work with, right? And I think that's where I'm seeing it. So MBA is a good course. It teaches you a lot of how a business works. Do it if it's in a good college, where if you're assured of a high peer group. But
you have not considered it, have you?
Briefly.
Okay,
but
then, as you said,
what I need
so much more learning was happening on
correct
at the companies you worked for,
and what I needed to learn, the knowledge exists already. I hate the college environment of learning. Like I'd rather learn by doing. So that's
awesome. Thank you. Really good takeaways here. I've been asking everyone about education because I feel like even I have a perspective on this, but it's pretty blank. Like I can give you the same thing again, which is not very pretty. But I want to curate this knowledge around education from multiple people, and there's like so many different ways that education is contributing to people, and that is why this question. And I really appreciate the elaborate answer on that. Thank you so much, Raghu. Just like before ending it, I just want to ask your closing thoughts and also your feedback on this interview, because you've done a lot of interviews yourself. You've spoken to so many people. I just want to get your thoughts. Generally, is there any scope for improvement? How could I? I
like the theme of your podcast. I think that you picked something that the urban millennial, the young urban young person has on their mind very, very strongly, and I think you will be made or broken by the knowledge that you curate as a part of this. So that's for the podcast on the whole. I like your interview style. Conversational is. It really opens up the interviewer, and I felt super comfortable doing it. So awesome. More of that, please.
Thank you so much. And let's see. I just want I want this word to reach more people. To your experience and the knowledge you bring to inspire others to take these right steps and make smarter decisions with their career. Now tell me where can people find you and what do you want? Anything?
I'm most active on Twitter right now. Okay. I have a very weird inside joke as a handle name. It's called Python Hulk. Okay. So I used to be very fat back in the day. And Python because I was learning to code at one point at Hackarat. So it came from there.
Okay.
And so you can find me there. And LinkedIn less so.
Okay.
But mostly on Twitter. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Raghu.
This was great fun. Thank you for having me.
so much. And it was definitely fun.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.